Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my monitor. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and call on somebody again on their computers too. One moment, please. I'm still dealing with a little setup difficulties here. Okay. I'm going to try something. This is usually why I like to get in here early, but being locked out caused a little bit of delays. I'm going to try sharing screen 2 instead. Excellent. All right. Now, someone on the WebEx call, would you all be willing to let me know if you can see the Highland Heights traffic calming title slide on here? Okay.
I could see it before you just tried sharing that other screen. So I think the first time worked.
So now you cannot see it?
I cannot see it. I think the first one worked.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, let's try it again. Appreciate everybody's patience while we try to figure this out. Okay, at home, do you see it okay?
Yep, there it is.
All right, we finally figured it out. Appreciate your patience. Again, my name is Brad Walschmidt. I work with Nashville Department of Transportation on the street traffic calming program. I'll let Liz introduce herself. Excellent, thank you. So this is our second meeting with Highland Heights. We had one back in their winter. I think it was virtual only. I think there were about 3 or 4 people that were on that. So what we're here today is to talk to you about the design that our NDOT team has developed for traffic calming, what traffic calming is, what streets we're here to talk about, the solutions we've proposed, some of the solutions we considered but did not ultimately design, and what the next steps are to determine if you all actually will get the traffic calming that we've designed or not. So we like to say there's 3 E's of traffic calming. The first is education, and this meeting is a great example of that. Just talking about traffic calming with you educating us about the streets. It's a very good opportunity just to educate people on ways to calm traffic and try to really manage these vehicle speeds. Another piece is enforcement. That is police actually, enforcing the speeds and whatnot. That is a part of traffic calming. At NDOT, we do not have much control over that. So it is an important part, but what NDOT has more control over is the third thing up here, the engineering, what we can do to the roads to try to modify the roads in a way to, if people want to speed, maybe help dissuade them from wanting to speed as much. So traffic calming, we're focusing on residential streets, and we're looking at physical solutions to put in those streets to reduce speeds and really encourage lower speeds over an entire street. That's what we're talking about. The neighborhood street traffic calming program, it is a street program. And so we are going to be looking at 2 or 3 streets. Some of the other projects that are being selected are really 1 street at a time. But what we're looking to do is implement devices we're talking about reducing speeds and increasing safety. That is what we're trying to do is at NDOT is really increase safety on all streets. The traffic calming program is just one way through which that can occur. Quick PR announcement. We always like to make sure, welcome, thank you very much. Good to see you. We like to make sure people know about Hub Nashville. If you have any other sort of non-traffic calming things that you want to let Nashville know, Hub Nashville is where you can do that. If there's down tree limbs, if there's a storm drain inlet that's clogged, if you want stop signs, that is something you can direct to Hub Nashville and make those kind of requests. If you just don't know who to ask, Hub Nashville is where you want to go. And then we have Walk and Bike Nashville. If you want to know more about maybe sidewalks or walking and biking in your neighborhoods or somewhere, here's the contact for that. And then the Beautification Commission. If you want to learn more about how you can adopt a street or community service or neighborhood cleanups, this is the contact at Nashville for that. This sort of ends our PR announcement, but some things we try to make sure people know about as we do these neighborhood meetings. So you all submitted an application. Daniel, do you remember when you submitted that application? about a year ago. So many streets, currently over 400 streets have been applied for. You all got selected back in December. Now, you all got selected based on some data that we collected. The percentages have changed recently, so these are a little different, but these 4 categories, we looked at your streets that were in the application. How fast are people driving on your streets? How many crashes are happening on your streets? Are people wanting to walk a lot? Are there churches and schools that make people want to walk, like parks? And then does the street have sidewalks or not? When people are walking, are they having to walk in the pavement where a speeding car could really cause some damage? Those are all the things that we did. And through this process, I believe it was Douglas Avenue was one of the streets that got scored pretty high, but you also had a couple more streets, Meridian and Lishi. So these are the 3 streets that we looked at for traffic calming. You see Douglas there from Dickerson to Lishi, Meridian, Douglas to Trinity, and then Lishi, Douglas to Trinity. We put these terms collectors. All streets in Nashville have terms. Dickerson Pike would be an arterial. Kind of think about what that does, or Gallatin Pike. Local streets would be like Meridian or like Marie Street, and then collectors are sort of in between. I think Trinity may be a collector, sort of that in-between road connecting. We do look at traffic calming a little differently when there's streets that are collectors. They don't get ruled out. We just look at them a little differently. We'll go through kind of what design we came up with. It's also good to note that Lishi is a WeGo route, so we have coordinated with WeGo. We always do when one of these projects is on a WeGo route to make sure that what we're designing, the buses and the bus routes, they understand what we're doing. And every once in a while we get comments from them, and we revise the design so that WeGo's aware of what's happening. And this is simply a map that shows, as you can see, Douglas Avenue in red, Meridian in green, and then Lishi in blue. So those are the 3 streets we were looking at. So what are some of our common traffic calming measures? Speed cushions are a very popular traffic calming measure. They are black rubberized things, for lack of a better word, and they get installed in the pavement so that cars have to drive over them and manage those vehicle speeds. We try to install them at distances that aren't too close and not too far. If you put them too far apart, the speeders are going to find a way to get really high speeds in between. If you put them too close together, it's going to feel like you're in a grocery store parking lot, and we're not trying to do that. We're trying to find that happy balance. And so these speed cushions are one way that cars have to drive over them, and the faster that car goes, the more uncomfortable it may be. Another option we look at is, I'm going to focus on the left here, these radar feedback signs where you have a speed limit sign. You got that electronic speed sign where if you're going fast, it shows your speed and actually blinks at you. For some people, this actually does help. Some people just zone out and they do not realize how fast they're going. It can help for some drivers. So that's one option. Narrowing, I like to focus on the left picture more. Some streets just have so much pavement. You drive on them and you just think, my gosh, it's so much pavement, it's so wide. So one way to calm traffic is to actually put those white lines up and down the street so it kind of visually narrows where a motorist thinks they're supposed to be driving. You wouldn't think it would make a change because they can still just drive over the white lines, but it does make a little bit of a difference. And sometimes we just try to want to make any difference we can in a positive way. Speed tables are similar to speed cushions, but they cover the entire width of the street, as you can see, and they're longer. I'm going to go back to cushions really quickly. You can kind of see speed cushions are a little shorter, and there's a gap in there. Speed tables cover the full width, and they're longer. That speed table means you can usually go a little faster, just a little faster at a relatively comfortable level. NDOT is not recommending as many speed tables, and the reason why is all cars and vehicles have to drive over these, even fire trucks, even ambulances, even school WeGo buses. One of the benefits of speed cushions is that for those larger vehicle bases, those gaps in between the cushions are designed so that those fire trucks and ambulances with wider wheelbases, they have less of an impact when they're going over those things. Usually the front wheelbase, the front axle will clear. The rear axles will either clear or have a little bit of a impact. They might go up on the edges of the speed cushion, but either way, when you're talking about those emergency vehicles or WeGo buses, their impact it's going to be much less of an impact for them to slow down going through these than it would be these. So it's not no impact, but it's definitely less compared to that. So those are the main differences between cushions and tables. The last is, or excuse me, second to last is traffic circles. These are like roundabouts, just much smaller. One of the things we always have to do is make sure a school bus can get around these, which usually means you need a pretty big area, which usually rules a lot of these neighborhood intersections out for traffic circles, or in this case, WeGo buses. We don't want to design something to have a WeGo bus get stuck. So that's something we look at. We look and see if there's any intersections where going around can actually help slow vehicles. And the last are chicanes. You can see on the left, that's another thing that causes cars to have to turn their steering wheel, which usually causes a little slower traffic. The picture on the left is just pavement markings for the most part. You can see the graphic on the right there. You actually build something physical. So what did we look at? We have recommended on Meridian and Lichy a hybrid between speed cushions and tables. And I'm going to try to explain that in a minute. For Douglas, we've recommended radar feedback signs. The difference is there's so much traffic on Douglas going from Dickerson and connecting all the streets. We want to find a traffic calming solution for Douglas, but we do not want to create a different problem by trying to solve one problem. And we do feel like with the amount of traffic on Douglas, that putting something vertical where people do have to hit their brakes and slow down to go over it could create different problems. So for Douglas Avenue, we are recommending radar feedback signs. For Meridian and Lichy, we're recommending, I'm going to call it a longer speed cushion. And it's because those streets, excuse me, please, while I go back. It's because those streets are posted at 30 miles per hour. A lot of the streets that we work with in the traffic calming program are posted at 25 miles per hour. These are posted at 30, which means we want to try to maintain a speed at 30 or right above with our traffic calming. The speed cushions would really cause a lot more speed reduction if you were driving over these. So what we've done is imagine the speed cushions, but imagine if they were longer, more like a speed table. So, or imagine this speed table right here, but if you had the gaps in the middle where the larger emergency vehicles could go through. So that's what we've proposed. And the reason is because cars can usually go a little relatively more comfortably fast over these because of how long it is, but we're going to create the gaps. And I have some schematics we're going to show you. We are going to go through the design we've designed. I just kind of want to talk through the photo examples with you all. So we're here on the red circle, meeting number 2. The next step is an online ballot. If that's successful, then NDOT will construct the traffic calming. Douglas is proposing radar feedback signs because it's not something in the road, no ballots required. That's going to happen, 100% going to happen. Radar feedback signs on Douglas. The speed cushions or longer speed cushions on Meridian and Lichy are up to a ballot. So what does that mean? Well, NDOT is going to create mailers, much like the ones you may have gotten, hopefully you got for this meeting here. You're going to get something looking very similar. I have an example that I can pull up here at the end of the meeting to show you all. And every property owner who has property along Lichy or Meridian is going to get this mailer to vote. It's going to direct them to a website where they can vote on an NDOT website. If someone doesn't have the internet, there's also a phone number they can call to cast their vote that way. And you will have the opportunity to vote yes or no, whether you want the traffic calming on. So if you live on Lichy, you'll be able to vote yes or no, whether you want that Lichy traffic calming. Meridian. You can vote for it or against it. That's going to be open for 6 weeks. NDOT will probably send those in the mail later this month. And there'll be a 6-week voting window pop up. Then at the end of that 6-week voting period, we'll count the votes. And if 2/3 of the people that have responded vote yes, you're getting the traffic calming on that street. If it's less than 2/3, then the speed cushions are not going to go on your street. And it is possible that one street could be successful and the other street could not be successful. They're not tied together. It truly is 2 different street votings happening. And I'm definitely willing to answer some questions on this. This is a relatively newer process that NDOT we've instituted, but that's it's going to be is 2/3 of the people that respond. Is it yes? That's how the vote is going to be. So I want to walk through the final design, and I apologize. I want to be respectful of people's time. So if I go too fast, Liz, if anybody's if anybody on the WebEx can chat to Liz in case I'm going too fast, or anybody in the room, my intent is not to rush. I just want to make sure I give you all the great content while also being respectful. All right. And Liz, if anybody in the chat says they cannot see the design, please let me know. I think I've set this up right. Excellent, thank you. So this is the design. I'm going to try to get that out of the way. So one thing to keep in mind is the north arrow is pointing to the right. So you gotta kind of rotate your angle here. So north is going to the right on the sheet. So what you can see is we can see there's some along Douglas Avenue. I'm gonna use my cursor. There's some R's and squares. Those are where the speed feedback signs are gonna go. So basically, as you're coming on either direction of Douglas and you're approaching Meridian from either side, we're gonna have some radar feedback signs. That's kind of in the middle of Lishy and Douglas. Lishy's got the always stop. I believe Douglas has the traffic signal. So we put those at Meridian because that's kind of where if people want to speed, they may be hitting their higher speeds. And then what we have here on Meridian is 7 locations between Douglas and Trinity where the longer speed cushions are proposed. And on Lishy, it's 6 cushions. Now you see the streets are about the same length. The reason Meridian is 7 and Lishy is 6 has a lot to do with where the driveways are, some steep hills. We don't design these speed cushions on steep hills. They're not made for that, or else they're gonna shear off with the bolts. We also don't want to put these speed cushions right in front of your driveway. We don't want people turning in and out and going over them at an angle. So we try to avoid putting them in front of people's driveway. So that's why you see Meridian has 7, and then Lishy with the WeGo route has 6. So I'm just going to go through a real quick, just kind of zoom in. We'll walk through Meridian from Douglas going north up to Trinity. Then we'll do Lishy from Douglas up to Trinity. And then we'll check out those radar feedback signs on Douglas. So north is still to the right. So we're going to start here on Douglas. You can see, and for those of you at WebEx, if you see these numbers, like here's 1,333 and 1330, and on the left there's 1316 and 1317B. Those are property addresses. We put those on there so people can kind of get an understanding of where are these in relation to where your address might be. And so these are examples of where these longer speed cushions would go. And you'll see those diamond signs. We put yellow warning signs next to these speed cushions because we want people to, if they're not expecting to drive over these, we want it to give as much warning as we can, including these warning signs, so people, as they're about to drive over them, can have some advance notice of what's coming. This is continuing north along Meridian Street. You can see, again, a photo example of kind of what they'd look like, except they'd be longer, like we've described. Again, with the street numbers. If I'm going too fast, please feel free to interject. And then this is the final Meridian Street right there as we approach Trinity. A couple more locations. And now I'm gonna pop over to Lishy there at the always stop at Douglas and Lishy. Going north from there, you'll see very similarly these longer speed cushions. You'll see those warning signs to let people know that they're coming up. Continuing more through Gatewood, up through Marshall. And then the last one here before you get to Trinity, really the Joy Avenue and Edwin Street, there's kind of some steeper hills here, and so that's one reason why we didn't put one closer to Trinity. But those are the locations of the speed cushions for those 2 streets. Again, Lishy being a WeGo route, so we've coordinated with WeGo. Absolutely, yeah, I've been asked to back up one, so here you go. And absolutely, yeah. Any particular address on Meridian? Around 1530? 1513. Okay, so here's 1516 and 1519. So here's, I guess it's Pullen Avenue. So here's Gatewood. So Okay. I'm going to go forward a few more. And this is Douglas Avenue. Now north is straight up. We got rotated here. And you can see here's a radar feed. Actually, this one sheet shows both of them. The radar feedback signs going in either direction right there. If you're going west on Douglas, there'll be one approaching Meridian. If you're going east, there'll be one approaching Meridian Street. And again, those would be the ones with the speed limit signs and that electronic flashing. But that is the traffic calming design. This shows kind of an example. They're not perfectly to scale, but this sort of tries to demonstrate that these will be longer, like that speed table, but still with the gaps in the middle, like the cushions. We go along with the fire trucks and ambulances. They are either able to clear them or they have a little bit of inner tire rubbing on the angled up part, I'll say. Exactly. Based on our measurements, they can be about 60 inches on the front for both ambulances and fire trucks based on the measurements. So what you just said is the exact point why we try to make sure if you have double tires in the rear, that's the difference. Is you can't clear, but it can have less of an impact because those speed cushions are ramping up. It would be, yes.
So why not table instead of cushion?
Because there's a higher chance of less impact on the cushions with the gaps than there is of a table. If there's a table, I'm not on the PowerPoint. Apologize while I try to bring that back up.
Somebody flatline in the back on you and you go really fast, that probably will resuscitate it.
Oh gosh, yeah, I don't know. But you're correct though. If it's a wider vehicle base in the front axle, they'll clear. If it is a dual tire in the back, you're correct in that it may not be able to clear this.
What about semis?
18 wheelers, I don't know what their wheelbases are, but I would say we're not as concerned about whether 18 wheelers have to slow down or not as much.
Why?
Because ambulances and fire trucks are usually responding to an emergency. So we in neighborhoods are usually more focused on
somebody going over and what it does to jostle the trailer.
To jostle the trailer. I don't know if I've heard feedback. I don't know for sure. I hear what you're saying. An 18 wheeler going over a speed cushion or even a table, I guess, could jostle the back. You might be right.
Then you're consistent. All the tires going up, all the tires are going over. If you have the gap in between, if somebody misses it, then the trailer's going to do this. And the payload's going to
Gotcha. So you're saying the table, at least if like a large 18 wheeler goes over it, it's equal, and so it's going over it. It's kind of equal. But if it's a speed cushion and maybe one of their tire tracks goes over it and the other doesn't, it could create a jostling. Is that right?
cargo that's shifting.
And then cargo would be shifting. Okay.
We have to look at it.
Right. Right. That's a good point. I do think. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We can certainly talk about that with NDOT. I do know they really do prefer the speed cushions over the tables, but yeah, no, appreciate that feedback, and we can, not gonna make promises, but we can definitely look into that and talk more with NDOT about that.
Sorry, I think the tables are probably about 4 inches, 5 inches.
Yeah, so Liz, did I see a question that somebody asked what the height was? Yeah, so the peak of the cushion is about 3 inches off the pavement, and the height of the table at the peak's around 3 inches as well. So they're both about the same height. It's just a matter of how long it is, and then as you mentioned, are there gaps or not? Whereas the cushions have the gaps and the tables do not. But the max height is about the same. It's about 3 inches off the pavement.
advantage of a cable is it also slows down motorcycles.
Yeah, again, yeah, you're right. A motorcycle could hypothetically shoot the gap on cushions, whereas a table, they can't get around it. Again, because Again, it comes back to the emergency vehicle. It still may have some impact, but a table may have more impact to somebody responding to an emergency than the cushion. But we can talk a little more about that with NDOT. We may stick with the design. We may consider some changes. So yeah, so typically we want to have these speed cushions spaced around 400 to 500 feet. And that spacing is so that they're not any further away, and people that want to speed are going to have more room, more distance to pick up speed. Anything shorter than that is really just going to feel like I said, like a grocery store, a mall parking lot. So the studies and FHWA guidance have shown around 400 to 500 feet is the kind of about the right spacing. Sometimes you can be less than 400, sometimes you can be more than 500. Yes.
Now, when you look at Gatewood, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and full disclosure, I'm the one that, the greenhouse guy.
Okay.
Somebody coming out of my driveway, that speed cushion over the right in front of Gatewood, when that truck pulls out, it's going to wobble left and right. Because, the truck is already still in my driveway. And, while the other is trying to maneuver over that cushion. So that's I would say that is actually a ill-placed cushion.
And what street number are you? Just for the record, could you say, yeah? 1501. Awesome. Okay.
That drive is right here. When that semi is going to pull out, it's going to, pushing or non-pushing cable, it's going to wobble. Okay. I'm not so much concerned over here because by this time they're aligning to pull in here. But this one here is nearly right in front of our drive.
Okay. We can take a look at it. We might be able to move the location, or we may not be able to. I guess everybody along the street may have that same issue. It sounds like you may have an increased frequency of those large trucks. Okay.
And truck and pickups with 24-foot trailers, that's a truck route, right?
Yeah.
I think we are the only one on Leech that has the semi issue.
Okay. We can take a look at that. Appreciate the comment. Like the speed table comment, we can also take a look at that location. Again, we're trying to manage speeds, but we're also trying to manage comments like yours. We want to try to make things better without making too many things worse. So appreciate that comment, and we can take a look at it to see if there's any possible way to adjust that one location there in front of 1500, 1501. Thank you. Yes, the 1400 block of Meridian. So I think this is it. There may be a little few more parcels to the left, but this is roughly 1412 to 1519 here on Meridian. Excellent. So real quick, I'm going to go over to what the ballot may look like. These mailer ballots are going to be going to, if you're a residential property owner, you're going to get these ballots. Residential property owners are the ones who vote on this traffic calming program. So I know you've mentioned a greenhouse, so I'm assuming, is that a business? Okay, so you all will probably not get a vote because it is a residential program, so the residential property owners on the street will be getting the vote.
Yeah, but we own several houses.
If you own residential properties, then you will be receiving vote opportunities for those. Just make sure I'm speaking clearly. If someone owns multiple residential properties, that entity or person would get a vote for each residential property. They'll be going to the mailing address for each of the property owners if it's a residential property. And then what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to, there it is. So this is going to be similar to the meeting advertisements. You're going to get something in the mail that looks like this. Notice of an online ballot. It's going to have Meridian and Lishy up there. It's going to say, please vote today. You're going to be able to vote 3 different ways. We hope the first two, but if you need the third, we'll make it happen. The first is just scanning your smart device on that little QR code, and it'll take you to this website. The second option is just put this website into a web browser, and it'll take you to the traffic calming page where you'll be able to vote. You will also, on that traffic calming voting page, there'll be a link where you can review the designs. This design that we were just looking at will be on the internet, will be available for you to view and review. That's where you'll be able to check if we were able to incorporate your comments or not. If you see a difference there, it'll be on there so you know when you're voting, what are you voting on, what's on the internet, whether it's the same or different. But you'll be able to review that. In the bottom right corner, there's a big white space. There's going to be a unique code. It's kind of like your secret code. Every address will have a different code where when you put in your name and your address, what you're voting for, we want to make sure that Daniel Smith or whatever your address is actually you. And so if you're the one checking your mail, you'll have that, as well as each of you on everybody in here and on the WebEx call. It's one vote per property owner. So if we get 5 votes from the same property address, we're going to take the most recent vote. In case there's multiple people in a family or in a dwelling. But this is what it's going to look like. You'll be able to view the design on the internet. That unique code will be what you need to cast your vote. The design will look pretty much exactly like what we just talked about. Again, pending we can talk at NDOT about maybe tables, but we can definitely talk about the truck turning you talked about in front of your address. So other than that, it's going to pretty much look like what we talked through here today. So that's sort of what we want to make sure we presented. Go through the presentation, go through how we led to our design decisions, walk through the design. We've gotten some great feedback and comments and questions, and then walk through this sample mailer ballot that you all can expect to see. Again, I would say later this month. If we weren't changing the design at all, I'd say later this month. If we decide a few changes are appropriate, we may push it into early October, but they will be coming in the next several weeks for sure for voting. And again, it's 2/3 of all the responders who respond to the voting period during 6 weeks. If it's 2/3, yes, it's happening. If it's not, then it's not happening. And Meridian and Lishy are 2 separate votes, so one could get it and the other could not. They're not tied to each other.
I'm curious, for somebody who drives Lishy all hours, 24/7, and spend a lot of time at the greenhouse, why did you guys ignore Jones? Because that's the speedway.
Right. So the question. So the question is.
Jones is insanely fast. Motorcycles at 100 miles an hour. They scream down that street.
So I got 2 thoughts, and the question is, with this for everybody on the WebEx call for the traffic calming project here, why is Jones not part of it? Why is Jones not getting anything? Is that right? Okay. So I have 2 answers. Sorry, Daniel. The first is that Jones was not on the application. Sorry, don't mean to throw you under the bus, man, but Jones was not on the application. It was Douglas and Meridian and Lishy. So that's the first reason. The second answer I will give you is this neighborhood we were here talking about how it was selected back in December, and here we are with the design. I believe Jones was selected 2 months ago in the next cycle. So I need to check, but I'm pretty confident I remember seeing that. So Jones at some point will have the first meeting, something similar, and then there'll be a design and then a second meeting. So separate from this one, Jones actually did have some data that supported kind of what you said regarding the speeding. So Jones, something's coming. I can't tell you what yet, but it did get selected.
It really is the speedway thing.
Is it a speedway? Yeah.
I tripped the lane and Edwin. I almost went there, smack down again. By the time we got to Edwin and past, I was thinking that stop sign. They were off like I'm at a racetrack, and then by the time they got down, even after that little slinky thing got put up there,
Mm-hmm.
I think it became a challenge to see how many times they could make a flash at you and change the speed.
Oh.
Crazy.
when they come off East Trinity into Jones.
Yep.
It's on the map.
Gotcha.
It's hard to accelerate. You can corner real hard through there, high speed cornering. I believe on Wishy you don't have that because you have that rise and because you have the school right there,
Mm-hmm.
front side of school. So I think they're more respectful of the Jones. And it's amazing how fast people are traveling.
Gotcha.
Like that. Now the radar makes it really interesting to see how high you can get it.
Yeah, so the comment for the people on the WebEx is the radar feedback sign. Sometimes people may try to see how high they can get that number. And unfortunately, there may be some motorists that think that way, which is unfortunate. I still will stand by. Every once we will be in neighborhoods where sometimes people will say, you know, I've been zoned out before and I've seen one of those and it's made me realize I was going too fast. So even if it helps a few people that don't mean to speed go a little slower, or we have accomplished something. It just depends on the motorist.
Those radars, but adding a camera to it and then mailing the speeding ticket to the person going too fast.
Yeah, that'd be an issue for Metro Council about monetizing those. I'm not sure about the validity, but appreciate the comment. Yeah. Excellent. Liz, do we have any more questions or comments for the WebEx? Okay.
I do have another question.
Yes.
Probably not the right place to ask it, but Trinity Lane and Leashy has become extremely difficult to get out of. Sometimes you're literally there 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that, a stoplight is there on Jones, but I think a stoplight should be on Leashy as well. And to get on that route already, makes things a lot safer down there.
Right.
And now I think there at one point there were some ballasters installed, and the bollards.
Mm.
It was impossible for our drivers to even get out.
So it sounds like you have a desire for a traffic signal at the intersection of Trinity and Lichy. So that is a great example. Traffic calming can't help you, but that is a legitimate Hub Nashville request where if you see an intersection where you feel like a traffic signal should be considered, you can submit the request to Hub Nashville. I can't guarantee or promise anything, but if you want.
We've already had a meeting with NDOT and we're waiting on you guys to come up and put the strips down to do the traffic study.
Well, okay, then someone else working on it. I don't know who it would be because we're in the traffic calming silo, but sounds like a study's being done. So you've already.
Not done yet, but it's been promised.
Okay.
My understanding is they want to wait instead of being proactive and doing the study now, which we already have a problem. They want to wait until the apartment complexes come online and see what the additional increase can be with those apartment complexes come online before they do the study.
Gotcha.
Backwards because we already have a problem.
Right.
Somebody's got to get painful like because all of this building is that entire corridor is taking place and you're gonna have all this traffic right there in the sheet and everything they're building. I mean, building almost from Trinity Lane halfway down this year until you get to the greenhouse. That's a lot of building.
And we've already got traffic calming here all over the 20 so bad. Melissa was just as smooth as glass, and now it's horrible to go through now because when they dig up the street and they come back to patch their utility holes, it's horrendous.
Gotcha.
It's getting fluid.
Well, excellent. Well, anything else? I mean, we just want to make sure we cover all the questions. We got a few homework items to take a look at. Yes, sir.
North 6th Street and North 6th Street and Richards.
Okay.
Hello. Like, okay, we might stop, we might not stop. I've got Airbnbs on each side of me. They're taking the drive.
Tell them, Sam.
That used to have a drive. So now I have a long driveway. looking, praying that I don't get hit, because they might run that stop sign there in Richardson and North Six. And when they get out, they barrel past my house. One day I know have to be doing at least 6 times.
So you got people who aren't obeying stop signs?
Yeah, the same thing that he's saying is the same thing that I want to say. Sam and I had discussed it, because people don't stop at the stop sign, and speeding through here on Lishy and Douglas, somebody's going to get hurt because they don't stop at that stop sign.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're hearing this from a lot of neighborhoods. It's very frustrating that people just blow through all-way stops and don't respect them. It's a big safety issue. Sounds like you're dealing with it.
Right.
And you on the phone. I had 2 people talking to me at the same time, talking about the same thing. I think, are you Sam?
Yeah.
I think she was, yeah, that person was mentioning. So I had 2 people say, I was trying to listen to both of you with my 2 ears. I think I heard it, but the bottom line is it's very frustrating that we have people, and that'll be more of an enforcement issue, which I don't like.
Yeah.
I don't like passing the buck there, but when it comes to people not obeying stop signs.
Well, okay. What did you do about people parking the wrong way?
Dickerson, you come over the hill.
One moment, please.
Just before you get to Lishy for the right-hand turn, from there down and up the hill, people are using the center turn lane as a passing lane.
Yeah, I wish people would.
60 miles an hour to pass as many cars as they can going up the hill heading towards John.
I wish people wouldn't use that center turn lane for passing. That frustrates me when I see that. And then to your question on the web, to your question on the WebEx regarding if people are parked the wrong way on the side of the street, I don't know the best thing to do about that. I don't like saying that answer, but in the traffic calming program, I do not know that you could start with hub. You could start. It could be a Hub Nashville request, or it could be enforcement, or it could be both. But I'll admit I'm a little weak on wrong way parking direction. The best thing to do it. I don't want to dismiss you, but I don't know the best answer other than maybe try Hub Nashville or enforcement.
Right. They used to give tickets. The police department used to give tickets for that, but they kind of ignored that because there's so many people that has moved on this shit now. So they just park wherever they want to, and one car has a no parking sign on it. But he's parked on the street, so I don't understand it.
I never like to delegate action items to the council member, but I do wonder if the council member could be one person also that could, he or she may be aware of that already.
Right. But I would speak to the councilman, and just ask Metro again to monitor it. But the biggest concern, like Sam said, is parking. It's driving so fast through here. 1 and 2 o'clock at night, you hear them racing, and it's dangerous.
Right.
It's just dangerous.
No, I appreciate your comments. I'm sorry, Liz, did you say that someone had typed in a question on the WebEx?
Oh, did they type something in?
Not necessarily cars parked the wrong way, but there's a parking lane currently on and how the speed cushions would address that.
How the speed cushions would address the parking area?
Uh-huh.
How are they going to work?
I'm not really sure how they're going to work with the parking area. I mean, where speed cushions are shown, people may be parking next to them, or right in front of them or right behind them. So I guess that'd be the best answer I could offer up, Liz. I don't think we're designing the speed cushions in a way in which a car would have to be parked on a cushion. I don't believe we've designed that. So.
Uh-huh.
Well,
What is the speed cushions? Is it going to slow speed us down? Coming Lishy and Douglas.
Ma'am, if you can hold on, please. I got someone commenting in the room. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
obviously all people cafe, there's a lot of cars parked on both sides of it, which sometimes makes it impossible even. You kind of have to get really close to the ones parked on your right-hand side for the car coming forward to actually pass the leash just not there. So if you have, and I think there is a speed cushion on
or they can split the gap and go over the cushion on the sides, which makes the table work even more sense.
See that first speed cushion over there. I don't know what they're doing with that church that's fenced in, but I assume that's going to be also development because of the other side of parking developments over there. But all the cars are already parked at the church most of the time. So it's difficult for any kind of vehicle to clear, I think.
It's possible. I mean, once you start stacking up cars parked on the side of the street, I mean, even without speed cushions, you probably got people almost hitting, I imagine, head on sometimes. So it's an existing. So.
No, you have to stop and let.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's plausible. Yeah.
For Wishy, the tables make great deal more sense if you didn't do anything.
Yeah, we can talk about that with NDOT a little more. But yeah, if cars are parked on the other side of the street now, it sounds like it's kind of a tight squeeze on so. But we'll look.
Just with a van or a car, two cars coming at each other, you better slow down. If somebody is going fast,
yeah,
and trying to beat you,
that's one of the reasons why traffic calming. We want to try to. If someone's coming fast, we're hoping to manage that vehicle speed that you just said.
I hope so.
Yeah, so one of the avenues may be to knock it down to 25 instead of 30 on Wishy.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it actually works fine.
What the speed limit is already 25.
They have set it at 25, and that actually works really well too.
Do we have updated information? I thought the posted speeds was 30 on these streets.
It is to Douglas.
No, Lishy is 25.
Lishy's 25?
Yeah, certain areas of Lishy is 25.
The people in the room are saying Lishy is 30, and we thought Lishy was 30 as well between Douglas and Trinity. But it may have changed recently, and I'm not aware of that.
At Douglas and from Douglas to Cleveland is 25. Okay, when you go up, Lishy is 30.
Right. Yeah, that may be true. We've only been looking at Douglas to Trinity, so I totally believe everything you're saying south of Douglas because we've been focused on Douglas to Trinity. That's why.
Right. Because going up from Lishy to Trinity Lane is 30.
Gotcha.
Running out the street. I mean, Lishy is really not that wide of a road.
No, it's really not.
And Meridian is wider than Lishy.
Sorry, I'm going through real quick. Lishy, I hear what you're saying, especially if cars are parking on both sides of the street. It is definitely narrow. Lishy's wider than a lot of residential streets in Nashville, but if you got people parking on both sides, yeah, it starts narrowing real soon. Yeah.
But you have to remember, we have the city bus coming, through here, and the bus usually have to stop to let cars by that's coming down Lishy, coming from Trinity Lane to Lishy. The bus have to stop and let the traffic come by before they can pull off.
Gotcha. It's good to note about the bus. Again, I had 3 people talking. I apologize, y'all. But no, it's a good point about the bus.
And, you know, once they get the houses built that they're building on, it's going to be more traffic. Once the church go, and those people are going to be parking, you know, also. So they haven't come up with a plan how these people going to park, because people park in the front of my house and the back of my house. You know, half the time I can't get out of my drive in the back because people are parked in the alley. You know, that's just how much traffic that Lishi has now.
Gotcha. Well, I definitely can't control how much parking.
Yeah.
But the traffic calming program, what we can try to control is when people get out on these roads, hopefully they'll be driving at a more manageable speed. That's what we can try to control.
This study that you did was triggered by an application that this gentleman did.
That's right.
So
yes,
you see that big 130-year-old tree is gone and that house is gone because they're putting up another big complex over there.
Oh, and okay, more development.
There's more development there. There's more development over here. The church and everything else. So Lishi is, I bet you that they're going to be at least another maybe 150 units.
Okay.
Easy on Lishi in the next, 9 months, 8 months before your cushions go up. I don't know. I think so.
Right.
So I don't see that the application triggered it. It wasn't the development that's on the books that triggered the calming studies.
That's correct. Development activity did not trigger the traffic calming. It's a city traffic calming program. Any resident can apply for a street. NDOT will look at data and select. There are some developments in Nashville where traffic calming along a residential street does get assigned. I believe McFerrin Park has had a few developments where that occurred. So I'm telling you, it is possible, but I certainly don't know how many developments that's the case for. But yeah, this was not a development driven. This was a city program applicant, and then the data supports it. So this, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The question is, will the data be outdated by the time you apply, by the time you install, if it is approved on Lishi, because of all the developments going in the time frame from when the application was put in until you're going to be installing it.
Right. Like that.
It's going to be a completely different street in that 9-month period of time.
Right. Yeah, we're hearing that on a lot of streets in Nashville. Now, I can't compare Lishi to every other street, but whether it's Wedgwood, Houston, or whether it's any other street where they're like going, tearing down one building up two, it seems like change is happening on. I mean, we will take, aerial images for our design, and then 4 months later we check it again and we go out there for another site visit. And it's like, well, that's not one house anymore. So I'm certainly not trying to diminish what's happening on Lishi. There's a lot of change happening on Lishi, but we are seeing this where I think if we were to stop and recollect data all the time, I'm afraid that NDOT and we would get into where we're just always collecting data and reevaluating things, where in this case, we collected data. We saw that some streets in Nashville, these being some of them, have a speeding issue. Let's do something about it. And so that's what we're doing. So, and then Jones had something similar. They got selected in the July cycle, and then there's many other streets just like that. So,
it's really actually pretty rare that we see people really flying down Lishi. Most people are pretty manageable.
Yeah.
Saying I do his transportation logistics, so I'm in the van or usually with a trailer or truck, in and out of there all hours of 7 days a week. And very seldom do I run into anybody that's just hauling ass.
Gotcha.
Now, the jump, that's a story.
Completely up to the four-way stop at Douglas, they were flying past the box. We stood up there and minutes that just, they were flying. We looked at each other.
Yeah.
60 meters.
Gotcha.
I remember it was so peaceful. Didn't have a lot of speed going on. You had it. A couple of people got hit by a car and balancing it.
I think one of the concerns that we're talking about, like for the one exiting out of company and turning left with a truck, if we have cargo in boxes, it's not so bad. But we have a lot of plants that are on carts that go to trucks. So when you have carts that are, you don't.
Right. Issues with the cargo that are like, you know, could get tipped over if you're going over these at an angle or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have upset customers because you have damaged plants showing up to them.
Right.
It's just nuts. So I think that's why we're really concerned with the cushion versus table and the location of those right outside the company.
Right.
Because it damages cargo.
No, appreciate that feedback. We'll be sure to talk.
Right, you mean the right cushion?
What? Let me ask.
Can you please pause 1 minute? Thank you.
It's a right cushion over here, could be a table.
That's a table.
And this
is a table on the other side down closer to the mansion.
And then you can eliminate this one here because of the way of how the trucks pull out.
Right, shift it down.
Then I think that probably could. I mean, past the greenhouses, I never see anybody skiing there. I've never seen it. We have been there 40 years.
Now the one that was middle left turn, we went down closer to the mansion.
On the other side, of Gatewood.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a traffic engineer, so I see streets. I know you got the mansion. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be gone completely.
Then you're gonna have on my side.
Understood. Even if it's on the other side of Gatewood?
Well, 14 times over.
Even if it's on the other side of Gatewood? Okay. Yeah, if we remove that one completely, I think the distance from the 1410 location on the left to the 1602 location, that's going to be too large of a distance where it's not going to be.
But the practicality of being there, we don't see people speeding. Don't see it.
Yeah, I think this is where we'll let the voting, we'll definitely let the voting play out on both streets. If there is not a perceived speeding issue on any of these streets and people vote accordingly, then that will be the result. I think that's one reason why NDOT has this voting process. We're not coming here to saying, hey, you're getting these. It's happening. We allow each street, the property owners, to vote because if property owners want it, they have the right to vote for it. If they do not want it, they have the right to not vote for it, and that's the final say. So that's one reason why the vote is there. So if people like it or don't like it, you have a voice.
Well, let me ask.
1 moment, please, ma'am.
So
okay.
Let's say the design doesn't change at all.
Yes.
And it's approved. Then what is the recourse for the commercial entity that's been there since the late 1800s if what you're adding is causing damage to the cargo?
I understand your question. I do not have a good answer other than if the speed cushions are approved through the policy that's set, and then there's damage to vehicles because of it.
That's a vehicle, it's a cargo.
To cargo. I'm not aware of examples where NDOT's gotten complaints about damage to cargo or inventory. That is not me saying that you're wrong. I'm just letting you know we have not heard that. So that is something I would like to talk with NDOT about because you have a very valid question and I just simply do not know the answer.
It may not, I'm just saying
Yeah.
If that design stays in place,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to have it because there's no way that it's not going to damage. If you're going back and giving your feedback, with that in place, there's no way that it's not going to damage flowers coming out of your campus, which has been there since the 1800s.
Where can the 1500 location be moved to alleviate that concern?
20 miles away.
So does that mean if all of these are cushions, you have the same problem? You have the same concern? If this goes away, but all these others are still cushions, you still have the same concern? I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, I think the table is much more beneficial for the vehicles that we put in and out of there. Which one of the questions that I would ask is, I know how many trips there are from WeGo a day. But for fire and police coming through an emergency situation, how many runs do we actually get through there? It's very few. Most of the time they come through Jones versus what we have coming in and out of there on a daily basis, which is anywhere from 4 to 20 trucks a day that are traveling in and out. If you look at that for, the amount of cargo that we're putting in and out. It's gonna hurt his business.
Okay. Now, someone on the phone was trying to ask a question. Sorry, can you go and ask your question, please?
Yes. How did Jones Avenue get a traffic calming thing, and Lissy has far more traffic than Jones?
How did Jones Avenue get selected for traffic calming, but Lissy Avenue has
Right.
more traffic?
Right.
Are you talking about Lissy between Douglas and Trinity?
Yes.
Well,
But Jones Avenue has two, and Lissy has more traffic than Jones Avenue. I mean, I don't understand, how that happened.
well, Lissy Avenue has a traffic calming design that we're presenting here for a vote, and then Jones Avenue has been selected for the next cycle to be considered for traffic calming. So both streets have something in process for a possible traffic calming. So I guess I'm not sure I understand your comment or
Okay,
question.
Jones Avenue has two traffic calming things in two different areas on Jones Avenue.
Oh, two
When
different.
you go up,
So you're saying there's a different part of Jones that has traffic calming also?
right.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, yes. I mean, I believe a few years ago there would have been speeding data that showed that there was a lot of speeding on that area of Jones. So I think that would probably be the driver for why there's another street of Jones that has traffic calming on it.
Yeah, they have two. And so it just puzzles me. It's more traffic on Lissy than it is on Jones.
Right.
And
Well,
I can see how.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I can see how people can be speeding on Jones as crooked as it is. It's the elbow.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm sure it was due to speed data. I wasn't around for that first Jones project, but that would make sense if there's a lot of speeding. NDOT would have selected that for traffic calming on Jones.
Right.
Even if the volumes might be
Okay.
lower, if there's a lot of speeding but lower volumes, speeding is still a very dangerous thing. So.
Yeah. Okay. And so I guess that answered my question. But we'll come to some sort of solution, I hope. For Lissy.
Right. Well, yeah. The next step is for the ballots that'll come in the mail. We're going to take a look at a few of the comments we've received tonight and look to see if any changes are made. And the next step will be a vote. Every residential property owner will receive a mailer ballot in the next several weeks to vote, to go to the NDOT website and vote on whether they vote yes or no for the traffic calming on the streets. So appreciate everybody.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate everybody on WebEx. You all have a good rest of your day.
Okay. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Uh-huh.